Lightning like Steve McQueen. I'm in the fast lane when the light turns green. And I built tough, I ain't nothing but grit. Cause I made rugged blood, sweat, and spit. Yeah, like a horse I fly. Better push yourself in for a bumpy ride. I like to play hard, but I work harder. And I weather the storm cause I'm built stronger.
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? We are back. We are live. It is the Freight Coach Morning Show, the top morning show in transportation, coming to you guys every single weekday, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break down some industry headlines, and most importantly, provide some actual insight into what you can do with all of this information. If this is your first time tuning in, welcome. This is the real side of freight, ladies and gentlemen. And I say that every day. And what do I mean by that? I mean, I only speak to transportation professionals on this show, as well as my twice a week long form podcast. So I can speak to the right individuals who have done what you're looking to do, or who are currently doing what you're trying to achieve. So you can take all that information, apply it, utilize it, and see a meaningful difference in your business and your life. It's one of the many, many reasons why I proudly fly that American flag behind me every single day. A, we're the greatest nation on earth, but B, I'm living my American dream, and I want to help each and every one of you live yours as well. I got a special guest for you guys here today. We're gonna talk about carrier compliance. We're gonna talk about using the right carriers. How do you build up a relationship with a carrier, and all the steps that you can get going on to that. And it looks like LinkedIn has not allowed me to go live on their platform. So we're on YouTube, we're on Twitter, and we'll look into that here. So anyways, without further ado, I got my man Kyle Provost back on the show. Kyle, what is going on?
Good morning, Chris. There's actually a lot going on. Industry-wise, broker carrier-wise, we've got a lot to riff about. And
dude, for sure.
Also, today's kind of a special day in programmer world. The Unix timestamp crosses over 1.7 billion today. So that's kind of like when the odometer in your car crosses over a 10,000 mile mark. That's we're all going to be, when I say we, I mean programmers around the world are going to be watching that happen and maybe take a shot or something. That'll be fun. That's that just for reference, that's the number of seconds that have gone by since the stroke of midnight on January 1st, 1970. Right. That's what time it is in a computer. Yeah. It's
okay.
Yeah.
I gotcha.
Yep.
I gotcha. Hell yeah, man. I love it. Robert, what's going on? He says, good morning, Chris. You've been killing it with current industry issues these past few weeks. On point each day. Keep it rolling. It's what we do every single day for the last, it's going on 2 years now. We've been going live every single weekday. Corey Buchan, good morning. Watching over on YouTube. Again, for all of the people who watch on LinkedIn, I'm not able to go live on LinkedIn for some reason. To be honest, I've noticed a lot of content suppression on LinkedIn in the form of engagement of what I used to get on stuff. And I've changed literally nothing on my content strategy. And it is suppressed hard right now for some reason. So I don't know, you guys, but I'm going to keep going live because they're not going to keep me down at all. But that's just a heads up. If anybody listens to this on the replay, I'll put a post out there on LinkedIn here today about it, but we'll get it all figured out. But so, dude, what's been going on, man, from there? Like, it seems like every other day it's fraud, it's double brokering, bad, this and that and everything else under the sun. And, I've been thinking about this a lot, man. A lot of the steps to avoid a lot of this stuff is by building up a carrier network, right? Like having actual meaningful conversations, because software, and this is coming from two guys who, have this little company called Broker Carrier. Software does not fix bad training and being able to identify and having a conversation with the carriers that you're working with, right? Because it's like, this is great, like what we have to help minimize this stuff. But if your team isn't like invested in actually building a meaningful relationship with the carrier, it's kind of tough to outwork that, right? Like there's a lot of habits, that again, I use it like diet and exercise too, right? You can't out-train a bad diet, right? Because it doesn't matter what you do in the gym. If you eat shitty food all the time, you're done. And so it's like, from a carrier relationship standpoint, Kyle, like what are some of those points, man, like that you've identified where people can find success in it?
Yeah. And you raise a lot of good points. I mean, you and I do run a software company that does vetting and onboarding for carriers. right? But all that can do is automate the initial sanity checks. We can save you time on vetting, but you still have to know what you're looking at, right? And really the key points to look at right off the bat during your initial process is really just, do they meet all of not only the government's compliance requirements, but all of your own internal requirements?
Yeah.
Right. And then the two pieces you really want to harp on are maintenance and drivers, right? So when you're looking at the possibility of, is this a carrier who doesn't do a good job with their vehicle maintenance? Are they going to break down on the side of the road and leave my customers freight out on Highway 40 somewhere? Right. So that's why you want to pay attention to those maintenance issues when you're going over the inspections. Right. And then when you're looking at driver inspections, look for violations, drugs, alcohol, license issues, right? Not the hours of service issues are, I mean, every single inspection probably could get nailed for that, sort of like holding in football, right?
Yeah.
If they're having real moving violations, if they're really causing problems, they get them pulled out of that truck or potentially arrested. Well, now they're leaving your customers straight out in the middle of Highway 40, right? So that's about as far as you can go with the initial vetting, after you've done all the typical screening to make sure that they're not a scammer, that they're not a double broker. And then you have to just take a leap of faith and really give them that first load, assign them that first load on that lane that you're familiar with. And that's where the relationship really starts to get built, because you evaluate their performance as if it was an interview. Okay. You've got your customer's freight, you're going down the road with it. Let's see how this works. So you're looking for a carrier that, doesn't give you any trouble about providing all the verification materials that you request, right? They give you consistent communication. They show up on time to your shipper with a clean truck and a driver who looks like they've slept recently. They're courteous, they're professional, they behave like adults that are at work. These basic things that seem to be missing. A lot of fly-by-night carriers out there. Good service, good attitude, good communication. They provide tracking, visibility. If you're using text locator, one of those things, they quickly respond to your location ping requests. They deliver on time. They're courteous and professional with your receiver. You just walk all the way through. Is this not just a quality carrier, but is this a quality outfit that prides themselves on their work and exhibits good professionalism? So you start there. Now, if that first load goes well and that first impression is good, now it flips over to the broker side to maintain that carrier relationship. That's why so many brokerages employ carrier reps, right? If they did a good job the first time, come straight back to them the next time you have a very similar load, right? If you have something else on that lane, even that same cargo, even that same shipper, that would be great, right? Okay, you did a great job last time. Let's give you a chance this time. You're building that rapport. You're getting somebody steadily moving onto your A list, right? And that's what you want for every lane, is an A team, so you don't have to go back and use sourcing tools every time you work that lane again.
Yeah.
Right. So that's a basic sort of high level overview. And then from there, it really just takes time. Subsequent loads need to go well. Other people in your brokerage who interact with that carrier need to treat them well and respect that performance record. So it's really just professional relationship development with a freight context, if that makes sense.
No, it makes perfect sense, right? And I just think that, because at being a broker for all of my career inside of the transportation industry, I see that rinse in repeat methodology of carriers, right? Where it's like, oh, just find the cheapest truck, move on, find the cheapest truck, move on. Very few. Okay, hold on. Let me rephrase this. Everyone preaches how much they love carrier relationships, yet the majority of people that I see out there have like a 90% one-time usage ratio on their freight, right? And I just completely take the polar opposite approach in doing so, right? Like, because I want to work with the same trucking companies time and time again. I don't want to go out to the spot market. Load boards are great. Load boards serve a purpose in this industry. They really do. It's the most effective way to develop capacity if you need to find capacity quick. But why are you only using them one time, especially if they're doing everything that Kyle's talking about? They accept tracking if you require tracking. They're answering the phone. They're sending you photos of the freight. They're doing everything that you are asking of them, and then you never use them ever again, right? Because it's like, for me, man, we're always constantly talking to our carrier partners, finding out, hey, what lanes do you like to run? Did this load even work out for you? It might have worked out for me as the broker, but did that lane work out for you? Right? Did everything go according to plan? Did you get loaded in a good time? Did you get offloaded in a good time? How was everything? How was that experience? And it's all about reutilizing them, man, because I think that a lot of the problems that a lot of people are talking about has to do with the fact that they just go with the cheapest option. They don't look at the fact where it's like, yeah, you know what? This carrier is worth every dollar because they let me know every step of the way. And that's the type of people we want to work with. We want to work with them time and time again because of that, right? And because it's like, and then another thing that everybody always talks about, Kyle, the market. I understand the market is what it is, but the market is kind of fucking irrelevant for everyone, in my opinion, who's not publicly traded, right? Because with those large publicly traded companies, they're the ones who are more affected by the market dropping and raising because their stock price is kind of correlated with that. But for the majority of us who are out there, who are building, the overall freight market is pretty irrelevant. How do I know that? Because I'm building a freight brokerage right now, you guys. And guess what? I've never said. I've added damn near 20 shippers this year. Okay. And guess how many times I use the line, we have assets or we're asset light? 0. So don't tell me that people aren't onboarding new brokers. They're just not onboarding shitty brokers. And I think that you got to really go out there and start with that initial process. What are you doing? Because chances are, if you have a rinse and repeat methodology with your carriers, you're going to have that exact same methodology with your customers. When things get challenging, your mindset is, I'll just go find another shipper, right? So I think that for the most part, technology, everything, yes, it's great, but like, what are you doing internally? Utilize technology for what it's there for, to identify the right carriers time and time again. And that's what I love about what we're doing at Broker Carrier. We're highlighting the right carriers for the freight, right? We're not like sitting there and it's like, look at all these shitty ones. It's no. Look at all these great ones. Look at all these ones that are the right ones that you're going to want to work with, that you can build a business with.
Yeah, exactly. And, you can frame this conversation from the shipper's perspective too. So they, this is something we talked about when we were talking about freight broker websites. Shipping managers are not out there Googling, looking for freight brokers and looking at freight broker web. That just doesn't happen, right? Because they get cold called all day long by freight brokers. And now let's compare two, right? You get cold call from broker A, who knows a little bit about your business already and knows generally where your receivers tend to be, and says, I have good carriers that work that lane or work those lanes, right? And broker B says, I can find carriers quickly to cover that lane cheap. Yeah. Which one of them really sounds like they know what they're talking about? Which one of them sounds like you could trust them with your freight, right? It's pretty obviously broker A. So that's why it's so important to develop out these relationships and always remember that carriers are not assets. They are partners. They are the freelancers that are helping you succeed. And in turn, you help them succeed by giving them repeat business.
Yeah.
Right. People who like working together will do a lot of business together. So that's why we harp so much on use the same carriers again, use them over and over. If they did a good job, then don't go looking for another one the next time you have a load very similar to the one they hauled. Call them, see if they're available.
Yeah.
Right. Continue to build track records together, and your shippers will be impressed by that too. If you can honestly say, oh, I've got the perfect carrier for you. I've used this guy 300 times, right? That goes a long way toward getting you in the door of that shipper. Other than saying, oh, we've got some super expensive software tool that we pay $4,000 a month for, and I can find you a carrier in 10 minutes. Like, okay, well,
yeah.
All right. The proof has to be in the pudding there. If I, the shipper, say, okay, you can take care of this for me, find me a carrier, and then something goes wrong, or your vetting process isn't perfect and a double broker gets through. Yeah. I mean, that's the worst of all scenarios, but these things happen every single day. That's why we constantly see it in the news, right? But if you've got reliable partners that you've worked with many times, you're eliminating every possibility of fraud, scams, and nefarious activity. You're fully relying on somebody repeating their good performance, which is a much higher odds of success than than running some kind of vetting process and just hoping for good performance the first time. Right?
Yeah.
So
No.
it's great to have tools that automate your capacity sourcing, that make it easy for you to find carriers, but then counterintuitively, you want to use those tools as little as possible once you start developing out your lanes, you know.
Yeah, no, I mean, and I'm again just going with what has worked for me over the majority of my career. Tracy St. Clair, good morning. Catherine Whitehouse, good morning. Sage Outcast, welcome to the show. Robert says Sage is a fellow broker for 15 plus years. Sage, welcome. But no, man, I think a lot of the problems that brokers face are self-inflicted. I truly do. I think that, you know, you can go even deeper with it. And it's a lot of the way that brokers compensate their teams on finding the cheapest truck on a gross margin only style of compensation for carrier reps and everything. But like, I'm just of the very set mindset of, I want to use the same trucking companies time and time again. I don't want to go out to the open market. I want to cover 85 to 90% of my freight with a text message, right? Hey, we got this load again. Are you available? Are you available? And then just get them booked up that way. That's how I operate right now, man. For the most part, we only like after we've established a new lane, we've got a couple of carriers, we only reach out to those same carriers, right? Like that's our thing. Hey, are you available? Are you available? You're not, what day are you available? And then I present that capacity to my customers because they notice that, right? Because if I can go back to them and be like, hey, I have my driver so-and-so is back in the area tomorrow. Are you going to have anything? That sounds a lot better than the alternative, right? Because they're like, oh yeah, I remember that driver. They were great to work with. And again, like that's where all the magic is in brokerage. All right. It's not some algorithm that's going to give you X, Y, and Z. It's going to be finding the right trucks for the right loads. It is as simple as that. All right. It is. I've been doing this for a very long time, you guys. It is all about the capacity you source. It is all about the information that you're providing them, right? And you can't go into any of these conversations with a half-ass mentality of, oh, picks here, delivers here, this is what it weighs, this is what it pays, yada, yada, yada. You can't do that stuff. Sage, I like it. He says OD only. I have a ton of experience in overdimensional freight. We primarily specialize in open deck and heavy haul, right? So Sage can probably confirm this with me. If you don't give out the details of a load or you're off by an inch, it changes everything from a permitting perspective. If you're off on the weight. So again, it's like, I think that's where you got to start with all of this. You got to start with fundamentally training your staff to sell on the details, because that's where all the magic is, right? Mm-hmm. It's not around 38,000 pounds. All right. If it's 38,800 pounds, right? Give them the exact everything, you know. And for all my driver friends out there who watch this show and listen to this show, because you guys DM me all the time, I've never received a bill of lading from a customer before that didn't have weights. All right. I've never received a bill of lading from a customer before that didn't have POs or anything like that. I've received notification from a customer that a load was going to be ready and I didn't have that information, but I'm not going to send somebody a rate confirmation until I have that stuff dialed in, right? So I think like there's got to be just as much content out there, Kyle, to help these carriers identify who's a shitty broker and who's not, right? Because there's a lot of stuff out there that cripples the small business, right?
Well,
go ahead. I'm sorry.
Remember that, these problems are not unique to the freight industry either. These are vendor-client business relationships. If you think the broker as the client and the carrier as the vendor, that sort of dynamic exists everywhere. My experience being in the software and web development business, right? You always want a client who gives you as much information as they possibly can, who tells you everything they know about what they need, and then you still end up having to get pretty creative and fill in a lot of gaps. Now, in the freight industry, you actually have a template for how to provide adequate information and tell them everything they need, right? Because there are only certain specifications that need to be known about a freight load. There should never be a missing item of information, not just weight, but the dimensions of it, the types of vehicles that it would work on. I mean, it's very, very easy to fill all this out very completely and give the potential carriers every item of information that they need when they decide whether or not they can handle that load. So that thorough communication is extremely important. The recognition of this being a partnership and not a one-off transaction is extremely important. And I love what you said about the rates. That's universal, no matter what industry you're in. If you're always fishing for the cheapest rates or the cheapest service provider, you're going to get what you pay for.
Yeah.
You look at the wild difference in quality between offshore $5 an hour developer teams and legit onshore developer teams that are focused on their clients' needs, right?
Yeah.
And you can extrapolate that to any industry. You can extrapolate that to freight, right? Down to the quality of equipment, the quality of drivers, all of that comes into play. All of that matters, but you only get the good ones. Not only if you're paying good rates, but if your communication is thorough and you present yourself as a serious operation that does serious work and wants to churn through and make a lot of money, right? Because that's what people are looking for.
Yep. Robert, I don't know how I can, it's just brokercarrier.com is what the website is. I can drop a link probably after the stream is done and I'll put that out there. But yeah, it's brokercarrier.com is our website for all of this. But no, man, I think like when it comes down to it, fundamentally, I see a lot of chatter that is, I would say it's not necessarily that it's misleading. It's just not applicable to so many people that are out there, right? If I polled how many people just want to focus on getting new customers, I guaranteed 99% of the people who listen to this show that are the broker listeners would probably say, I just need more freight. How do I get better at sales? Mm-hmm. And then when you see a lot of this stuff that goes on out there and a lot of the content that some people are pushing, yeah, it's relevant, but it's not the end all be all, right? Like that's curing a symptom. That's not curing the core issue with a lot of companies. And I think training and development is the main core issue that is out there for a lot of organizations, because the training is mainly just get on the phone, cover the load, as opposed to actually vetting the carrier, right? Because if you're out there actually building a business, you know how challenging it is to earn customers, because that's what it boils down to. You can't just find a new shipper. Not in this market, not in any market. These last couple of years was a massive false sense of reality for a lot of individuals. It takes a lot of work to get onboarded with somebody. And if your thought process is, oh, if it goes wrong, I'll just get a new one, you're going to have a very long road here, because the market that we're going to go into, Kyle, is going to be a market that, unless you have 5+ years experience in the industry, you've never experienced a carrier market before, ever. Because these last couple of years, you know what? If you had a tough to cover load, money would purely solve it and you would find a truck, right? And customers were approving those rates. That's not going to happen anymore. And I think a lot of people are seeing that right now, because price is a thing. If you want the most accurate prices, hit up my friends over at Green Screens. That's how we price literally every shipment that we move inside of my brokerage right now. But, price is such a rudimentary thing of this entire equation when you're going out there and selling. Execution's everything, right? Because I can throw rates out there, but if I can't execute upon that price, you're going to be out of, you're going to be in a bad position with a lot of people, because you can't get more money from shippers, right? That's not going to happen in this next market. You're not going to be able to be like, hey, I misquoted that. Can I get $2,000 extra? It's not going to happen. You're going to get kicked out of their network very, very quick. So I urge everyone, you guys, focus on the blocking and the tackling of this industry that you can never automate. You can't automate a give a fuck. All right. I'm going to start there, because if your leadership doesn't give a shit about your results, your fucking frontline workers aren't going to care about the results either. Train, develop. It is a constant process. This isn't hey, we're just going to do it for 30 days. It is a constant process, training, developing, getting better. Because the reality is, you guys, and this isn't snowflake land here, you guys, real shit happens. You're going to fuck up. All right. You're going to fuck up. But are you going to learn from that? Are you going to become better? That's how people become really, really good at their crafts. It's not because they just did it right every time. On the contrary, they fucked up 99.9% of the time to get to that 0.1% where they're like, hey, I think I have a grasp on how to not operate now.
Well, and there's another issue, I think, and it probably is a leadership issue and a training issue, or a mix of the two, really, is a lot of people come into this industry with the impression that it's just, instant death, sudden death. If you make one single mistake, you're gone, you lose your shipper. If you make one single mistake, you're gone, you're going to lose your job at the brokerage. And it's a lot of, it's mostly social media's fault that people think that's the case. But you get new brokers or newly established brokerages who come into this thing with such a tremendous sense of pressure built up in their own heads that it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy, and they kind of nerve themselves out of doing a good job. Right. But people aren't really that unreasonable. You're going to make mistakes. It's going to happen. Everyone does. You just have to own it, be able to explain it and correct it quickly and move on and learn from it. Exactly what you said.
Yeah. It's, man, I just think that there's so much out there that people overlook, right? I think that everybody wants that easy button, right? They all want that, oh, hey, do this and everything's going to be fixed. Everything's going to be fine. But it's not, right? Like, technology is a massive, massive, massive value add to your organization. It is, but you got to know how to utilize it. You need to know how to break down that data. You need to train your staff on making the right decisions out there and mainly trusting your gut, right? I think so many people overlook how powerful of an indicator your gut is, because if something seems wrong, it's probably going to be wrong, and I think that, and again, train on the fundamentals, you guys. The fundamentals are everything in this industry.
Yeah. Technology is great, but you need to know where technology should stop. If you use a tool like Broker Carrier, and version 3.0 is coming by the end of the year, by the way. I've had a lot of people asking me that. By the end of the year, we're in feature freeze now. I finally put my foot down and said, okay, we're not adding any more new whiz bang features to this thing. Let's just get it rolled out and get it done. So I'm really excited to do that. But at the same time, you use a tool like that makes it very easy to find capacity for any given lane. It makes it very easy to connect with those carriers and get them onboarded into your system. But that's all just technical digital work. That's where technology stops. From there, it is now your responsibility to make that carrier like you, make them want to work with you multiple times, assuming they do a good enough job and you like them. Right now, that technology cannot do for you. Right, we can send them automated emails with load offer tickets all day long, but if they don't remember who you are, or if they didn't like working with you, that technology product is not adding any value for you. Right, that has to be done through relationship building, which comes from training, which comes to every point you've spoken to in the last half hour. Absolutely.
Yeah, man, it is. I think that at the end of the day, yes, it's challenging. Yes, it's hard. There's a lot to learn, but at the end of the day, you just have to apply, doing the unsexy part of the work, right? Because that's where all the magic lies. It's doing the little things right repeatedly, where it's like, if you got to pull somebody off of a load, let them know they're getting a truck order not used. Send them a revised rate confirmation right away. Do what you got to do, right? Let your carrier partners know. Do the little things right. If something happens, own it up, you guys. Just own it. Don't ever kick it into a different direction, because it just never looks good, right? And I think that it's always easy to point the finger in the other direction, as opposed to just looking at yourself and being like, yeah, you know what? It's on me. It's on me.
Like the worst, it really tends to just be a product of inexperience, but the worst mistake you can possibly make in any business, especially a high volume, high speed business like freight, is to hope that a mistake will just go unnoticed. It's not going to happen, right? If you've made a mistake, especially a clerical mistake, especially one that touches the money line, you need to very quickly tell all concerned parties that you've noticed it, that you're correcting it, that it's done, right? Because if you play coy, or if you chicken out and just hope that mistake will go unnoticed, that just makes everything infinitely worse. Then you will lose that shipper, or you will have that carrier never want to work with you again. So I mean, you're the guru on this. Everything you said is so spot on. Communicate, and communicate some more. That's what you got to do.
I just know a lot of what not to do. At the end of the day, that's really my only claim to fame, you guys, is I have real experience, right? So it's like, From my perspective, you guys, my content is coming from somebody who's in the trenches. All right. My content is coming from somebody who actually has done the job for a very long time. And that was one of my main driving forces for getting back into it the way that I did, right? I didn't want to be oh, hey, he's just a consultant. I'm putting my money where my mouth is. I'm going to apply everything that I talk about here on this show. And I'm going to show you guys hand in hand how I build the largest transportation company in North American history. It's going to happen. And I'm going to be documented at every fucking step of the way. So Kyle, as always, thank you for your time. How does anybody reach out to you?
So my email is kyle@brokercarrier.com. You can always feel free to just reach out directly to me. It might take a little bit, but I will answer your email. And then if you use LinkedIn, I'm on there. You can just search my name. But aside from that, I don't have much of an online presence. But yeah, please, anybody feel free. Send me an email.
Well, if you guys want to find Broker Carrier, just find me. I'm all over social media and I'm easy to find. We'll do all that. But that will be it for today. You guys, as always, we will be back tomorrow, 8:30 a.m. Pacific, 10:30 Central, to break some information down. And, guys, as always, if you guys got value in what you heard, subscribe to the show, you guys. Share it out there to your network. That's how we're number one. That's how we most importantly can reach and help more people, is through each and every one of you. And the fact that if you see value, your network will see value as well. I appreciate you guys. I love you guys. And we'll be talking to you soon.